Over occupied frets. September 17, 1944. Altitude 22,000 feet. Outside temperature -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Jack Reaper Malone shoved the throttle of his battered P-47 Thunderbolt past the red line. The Pratt & Whitney R-28 screamed at full emergency war power. Black oil smoke streaked back from the cowling and vanished into thin, freezing air. 3 Focke-Wulf 190 sat on his tail. 200 yards back. Closing. His radio crackled. His wingman, Danny Kowalski. 19 years old, voice flat and too calm for a man with his aircraft burning. Reaper, engines gone, going down. There was nothing to say back that would change anything. Malone rolled hard left. The horizon snapped vertical. 6 Gs crushed him into the seat. His vision tunneled gray at the edges. Blood drained from his skull and pooled in his thighs. His fingers went stiff on the control stick. Fuel gauge sitting just above empty. Guns nearly dry. 3 Predators locked behind him. He did not turn west toward England. He pulled back on the stick and climbed directly into their teeth. Jack Malone was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, 1922. Coal country. Rows of identical houses on streets that smelled of sulfur and boiled cabbage. His father descended underground 6 mornings a week and came back with gray skin and hands that never came fully clean. He never complained. He never talked about it either. Jack spent every spare hour watching crop dusters work the flat farmland east of town. Small biplanes banking over rows of corn, trailing white chemical mist, engines buzzing like irritated hornets. He decided before the age of 10 that whatever he did with his life, he would do it above the ground. He enlisted on December 22, 1941. 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor. He was 18 years old and told the recruiter he could already fly, which was mostly a lie. His primary flight instructor at Tuskegee noted in his file, exceptional instinct for spatial orientation. No fear response during unusual attitude recovery, possibly reckless. A separate notation 2 months later, fastest hands-on throttle I have seen in 12 years instructing. He flew his first combat sorties over Tunisia in 1943 in a worn-down P-40 Warhawk. First mission, he engaged 2 Messerschmitt 199s over an airfield near Bizerte and shot both of them down. Returning to base, he got lost in haze and landed at a British Royal Air Force strip 43 miles from his own field. A Scottish ground sergeant refused to believe an American could be both that good and that disoriented simultaneously. By early 1944, rotating to England with the 56th Fighter Group, his kill count stood at 6 confirmed. He was 22. He had already written letters to 4 families. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt was not built to inspire confidence at first glance. It weighed over 8 tons loaded for combat. Its radial engine, the R-28 number Wasp, displaced 46 liters and produced over 2,000 horsepower, which the aircraft needed just to stay airborne at fighting altitude. Pilots called it the Juge because it was shaped like one. Its fuel consumption made escort missions into a constant countdown of anxiety. German Luftwaffe pilots coined their own name, Fliegender Sarg. Flying Coffin. They were not entirely wrong at the time. Early Thunderbolts ate their pilots in dives if the airframe flexed wrong past 500 miles per hour. The cockpit heated unevenly. The engine, despite its power, ran rough on cold mornings and occasionally gave up entirely over the channel with no warning. Colonel Hub Zemke changed the doctrine. His 56th Fighter Group stopped trying to turn-fight German aircraft and started using the Thunderbolt's strengths instead. Altitude, speed in the dive, firepower from 8.5 caliber wing-mounted guns. The tactic was simple and vicious. Climb above the enemy, dive through their formation at maximum velocity, shoot everything within half a second, extend away using sheer speed, climb again, repeat until someone ran out of ammunition or fuel or luck. Malone absorbed the doctrine in a single week, and then spent the following months bending it past its edges. He cut his gun harmonization from 300 yards to 150, too close for most pilots to hold nerve. Exactly right for someone with his reaction speed. By September 1944, his P-47, tail number 42, 77171, carried 17 kill markings below the cockpit rail. Hand-painted white crosses, neat rows. The crew chief, Sergeant Bill Okafor touched them up after every confirmed kill with the precision of a man decorating a cathedral. Mission briefing, 0515, HU Airfield. A room full of men drinking bad coffee in leather jackets and trying not to look as tired as they were. Assignment, escort 300 B-17 flying fortresses through the Ruhr Valley industrial corridor. Hold the bomber stream together against interceptor attack. Protect the heavies at all costs. Standard mission language. Nothing about it sounded simple to anyone in that room. 48 Thunderbolts rolled out of dispersal in gray English drizzle and lifted off at 0615. They climbed through a solid overcast and emerged into blinding autumn sunlight above the clouds. Clean air at altitude. England and everything comfortable about it dropped away below. They picked up the B-17 formation over the Dutch coast. 300 heavy bombers in tight defensive boxes, contrails carving white gashes across a sky the color of old iron. An enormous, terrible, magnificent machine of war grinding eastward. Malone flew high cover at 28,000 feet, watching the cloud layer below and the sun angle above, looking for the first shadow that didn't belong. It came over Dusseldorf at 0908. Not a probe, not a test. 60-plus F-199s and BF-109s punched through two cloud layers simultaneously from above and below. Coordinated, rehearsed, aimed at scattering the escort formation and opening lanes into the bombers. Radio discipline collapsed in 30 seconds. Brake left. Banded high 6. Skipper's gone. 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Somebody's voice cutting through everything and then stopping. Malone rolled and scanned below him. A B-17 with its number 3 engine already dark and windmilling was losing altitude in a shallow, helpless descent. 2 F-190s were repositioning for a second run at it, pulling wide to line up their deflection shots. He pushed the nose over and dove. The Thunderbolt built speed with terrible efficiency. Altimeter unwinding. Airframe flexing and groaning through 400 then 450 miles per hour. The two enemy fighters were fully committed to their attack run, focused entirely on the bomber. Malone opened fire at 550 yards, too far for accuracy. He knew it. He didn't care. He needed them to break off their attack, not to die cleanly. The tracer stream walked across the leading 4 190's fuselage and right-wing route. The aircraft snapped hard left in an involuntary roll, then pushed straight down, trailing a thin white vapor that turned gray and then black. The second German pilot saw the tracers and yanked his aircraft into a violent break right. Gone east, full throttle, not interested in a fair fight. Malone hauled back on the stick at the bottom of the dive. 6.5 Gs, 3 full seconds of gray vision. When color returned, 2 new fighters were already sliding in behind him. Danny Kowalski had been Malone's wingman since a wet Tuesday in July. Milwaukee Kid talked constantly. Ate other men's candy rations without apology. Played a harmonica with more enthusiasm than skill every night in the crew barracks. He had a photograph of his girlfriend Rita above his bunk. Red hair. Standing in front of a Wisconsin lake. She was laughing at whoever took the picture. At 091 free hours over the Ruhr, a single 20mm cannon round entered Danny's Thunderbolt through the lower cowling and detonated inside the supercharger housing. Fire came out of the engine almost instantly. His voice on the radio was calm, the kind of calm that comes from training holding steady against a mine that is screaming underneath. Reaper, I'm hit, engines burning, heading west. Stay with the aircraft. Keep heading west. You make Allied lines, you bail out. Right is going to be, you're going to tell her yourself. Keep heading west. The frequency went empty. Malone had no time to watch the smoke trail. 2 190s were already inside 250 yards on his tail, their guns lighting up in short, controlled bursts. Cannon rounds walked across his left wing. 2 hits. The aircraft shuddered. Nothing structural. Not yet. He went to the deck, full throttle at treetop height, using terrain and low altitude to defeat their tracking solutions. A burned farmhouse strobed past. A canal, a column of vehicles on a road that looked up at him briefly. The Thunderbolt was dangerously clumsy in a sustained turning fight below 1,000 feet, but in a straight-line run at 0 altitude it was close to uncatchable. He ran them east for 90 seconds, pulling their attention away from the main combat zone. Then he hauled the nose into a vertical climb and held it. The R-2800 and Town held it. The R-2800 more raw climbing power than either German aircraft. He hit 6,000 feet with both enemy fighters still behind him but falling back. At 9,000 feet he rolled inverted. The trailing F-190 had followed him into the climb and was now slow, nose high, nearly stalled. A machine hovering at the edge of a fall. Malone rolled right side up, reversed cleanly, and dove straight at the aircraft's exposed belly. The burst lasted less than a second. The F-190 separated at the wing root without drama, without fire, without any of the cinematic destruction that people imagine. A machine flying, and then no longer. The second German had broken off during the climbing exchange. He was gone, heading northeast, not interested in continuing. Malone pointed his nose west toward the bomber stream, fuel gauge deep in the red band, left aileron sluggish from the wing hits. Long way home, then he saw them. 3 4-190s close echelon formation lined up perfectly on a B-17 that was already down to 2 engines. Smoke trailing from the number 4 nacelle. Crew still aboard, bomb bay doors hanging open. Nowhere to go, and no speed left to go anywhere with. Those 10 men were 90 seconds from dying. There is a moment in combat beyond rational calculation. The numbers say leave. Fuel gone. Guns nearly empty. 3 healthy opponents against 1 damaged aircraft. The math is clear. Malone didn't run the math. He put the sun directly behind him and pushed the throttle to a stop. It had already passed once today. The 3 4-190s were locked onto the crippled bomber, tracking it, adjusting their aim. Pilots focused on a kill do not expect an attack from behind them. That is the only advantage he had. He was inside 250 yards before the trailing German saw him. Too late. His first burst hit across both wings and through the cockpit. The aircraft pitched nose down and went straight in. The remaining 2 pilots broke in opposite directions. Classic split. Forced the attacker to choose one and lose the other. Malone went left because he was already in a left bank and the geometry was there. He miscounted his ammunition. He had more than he estimated. The second F-190 took a long, ragged burst through the tail section and lost all rudder authority. It entered a flat spin and descended in slow, terrible rotations toward the earth 4 miles below. The third pilot did not run. He reversed his brake and came back head-on. 2 aircraft on a direct collision course, combined closing speed better than 700 miles per hour. Both pilots held course. Both pilots fired. Malone's windscreen cracked on the right side. A fragment came through the frame and opened the long cut across his left forearm. He didn't notice it until the shooting was over. The German's canopy came apart in a spray of plexiglass fragments. His aircraft rolled left and away, trailing thin white smoke, going down in a controlled but desperate descent toward the ground. 3 seconds of engagement. 3 more aircraft gone. The B-17 flew on. Fuel lasted longer than it deserved to. He crossed the Dutch coast low, engine misfiring on fumes, and found a temporary Allied airstrip near Antwerp that wasn't on any chart he'd been given that morning. The landing was rough. Left wing still sluggish, airspeed indicator shattered by the head-on pass, making the approach entirely by instinct and the feel of air resistance through the controls. The aircraft rolled to a stop in Belgian mud, and the engine quit on its own. He hadn't touched the mixture control. He sat in the cockpit without moving for several minutes. Ground crew from a nearby armored unit pulled him out. A medic cleaned the arm wound, which turned out to be longer but shallower than it felt. Someone handed him coffee in a tin cup. He couldn't recall later whether he spoke to anyone. The 56 Fighter Group's official report credited him with 3 confirmed kills. Total, 17 confirmed, 4 probable. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross 6 weeks later in a ceremony at Bokstedt. He shook the general's hand, said thank you, and walked back to his quarters. Danny Kowalski's parachute was recovered near a village outside Krefeld. He was captured within the hour, transferred to Stalag Luft III, and liberated in April 1945. He was home in Milwaukee by June. He married Rita. They had 4 children and a dog named Malone. The B-17 he pulled from the fire that morning, tail number 42, 314 Treefort, named Memphis Bell's sister, landed at a forward base near Brussels with 2 engines gone and a hole in the fuselage you could throw a cat through. All 10 crew members survived. Malone flew 31 additional missions after September 17th. He finished the war with 26 confirmed aerial victories and 4 probable, placing him among the leading American aces in the European theater of operations. He returned to Scranton in October 1945. He never flew combat again and never seemed to miss it, which puzzled people who asked. He worked as a commercial pilot briefly, then ran a small aircraft repair shop outside town for most of his adult life. He was quiet in the specific way men become quiet when they have seen things they decided long ago not to describe. He died in Scranton on March 4, 1987. He was 65. His obituary in the local paper ran 4 sentences. His family cleared his attic the following week. They found a wooden cigar box containing his medals in their original cases, a faded photograph of P-47 tail number 4275971, with 17 neat white crosses below the cockpit rail, and a small harmonica that nobody in the family remembered seeing before. Nobody in the family played harmonica. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt flew over 546,000 combat sorties during the Second World War. Its pilots claimed 37,752 enemy aircraft destroyed in aerial combat. It absorbed more damage than any other single-engine fighter of the conflict and brought its pilots home when nothing else would have. The Germans kept calling it the Flying Coffin. They never changed the name. But by the end, they knew exactly what was inside it, and they were afraid of it.